Cover 2 podcast coming at you live from Saddleback College in Mission Viejo, California. I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
Jared, what did we see Sunday night?
Wow.
What was that?
A whiff. Big time whiff.
Big time whiff. If you don't know what we're talking about the Vikings' essential accidental Hail Mary to move on to the conference championship game in the NFC. Crazy ending. Stephon Diggs with the catch. I don't know the dude who missed the tackle. I think his last name is Williams. Marcus Williams, the rookie with the missed tackle, and the Vikings win at home in one of the craziest endings I've ever seen to a football game. I mean, this is on par with me, with the Stanford band running on the field, Aaron Rodgers throwing a Hail Mary against the Cardinals a couple years ago.
Wow.
This was a crazy, crazy ending. Joe Flacco, remember that pass a while ago?
Yeah.
The one where Chris Harris Jr. missed it. This is just one of those things you never thought would happen. And it happened, and the Saints blew it, and the Vikings are moving on in what ended up being one of the plays of the year and the plays of the last maybe 10 years, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm still, speechless. I mean, I feel so bad for that safety, especially the fact that he's a rookie. He had an interception in the third quarter, earlier in the game, a really, really nice interception, leaped in the air, made the pick, ran an extra 15 yards. I mean, he played really well up until that last play of the game. And it's, a lot of people are going to sit here and exclusively blame him for losing. That, to me, is not fair.
No, it's not fair.
He obviously deserves blame because he made a bonehead play. I mean, you wear a helmet and shoulder pads for a reason, and at worst case scenario, you tackle Stephon Diggs right there and don't let him get any more yards. But for you to put your head down and just completely duck out of the way is unexplainable, and it's I'm very, very curious as to what was going through his mind, because he was in front of the play, so he basically had two options. He could have, one, tried to make a play on the ball, jump, put your hand on the ball, try to deflect the ball down, or two, just let Stephon Diggs catch the ball and then tackle him. Because right there, I'm not exactly sure if Minnesota would have been in field goal range, or if they would have been kind of on that border, but it's not the Saints would have still been in control of the game. So it's just a crushing play that, like you said, you would never, ever expect to see. But I do have to put a lot of the blame on this Saints loss with the Saints offense.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
The fact that the entire first half, they were scoreless. So, I mean, I think you have to give credit to Minnesota's defense because that is a very, very stout, good defense. But for the Saints, they had been rolling the past couple weeks, and especially have Drew Brees at the helm, and the fact that you guys get shut out 17-0 in the first half, I think that is a more of a reason why the Saints lost. But the bigger story is going to be the missed tackle.
Well, no, definitely. And I remember you had the Saints go in the Super Bowl this year. I had the Saints winning this game and actually going to the Super Bowl once the Falcons lost on Saturday. And we'll talk about that game a little later. But so the Saints definitely disappointed. I know you're disappointed in their performance, especially that first half performance. And the Vikings absolutely dominated them in the first half. I went upstairs, man, in my house. I just started doing stuff. I'm like, this game's over. Vikings are going to win. I checked out in the third quarter. I'm like, okay, the Saints are actually putting up a fight now. I'll watch this game. And lo and behold, the Vikings actually ended up getting lucky at the end of the game, and the Saints should have won that game. But this is why you play to the end of the whistle. You play to the end of the game clock, because that can happen. And what a play by Stephon Diggs. I want to give this guy credit, because if I was a wide receiver, all I would have been thinking about on that play was catch the ball, get out of bounds, or get 2 feet in, right? Somehow, Diggs, when he caught the ball, knew that the defender had passed him, and he knew to run to the end zone. That was amazing to me. I would have never made that play. And for him to have the wherewithal to see, oh my gosh, there's nobody in front of me, we're going to win, was just added to the whole allure.
Oh, yeah.
You throw a Hail Mary, there's a bunch of guys going up for it and catching it, right? This is not, everybody knows, okay, just bat the ball down if you're on defense. If you're on offense, obviously try anything you can, try to cheat, try to catch that ball. This was a play to get out of bounds, and it was actually a very good play by the Vikings. This would have got them in field goal range. But a field goal is much harder, obviously, than Stephon Diggs just turning around and running for a touchdown. So it ended up working out. Again, you talk about the defense. I was saying that maybe you should have had a guy, an extra safety there, just to be the ultimate safety to not let them score a touchdown. But you kind of were talking to me before the show started and were saying that's kind of irrational because the guy who missed the tackle was that safety. That was the guy that was supposed to do it.
He was the last
so
line
I'll
of
take
defense.
that back. I do agree this was just a bad play on this guy's part. But again, not all the blame can go to him. You're right. The offense stunk on Sunday for the Saints until the second half, and then it was really good, and they scored 24 points. So I can't put the blame all on this defender, but the literal reason why they lost in the last seconds was because of this dude.
Right.
And he's a rookie, and I'm not going to blame him, and hopefully he doesn't think about this too much. Hopefully the Saints have a chance down the line, maybe another a Super Bowl chance.
Yeah, no, Drew Brees already came out and said that he doesn't plan on going anywhere.
Yeah.
I believe his contract is either up with
He's
the
free
Saints,
agent. No,
right?
he's a free
but
agent.
he came out and vowed that he said, I want to, end my career with the
Exactly,
Saints.
and
So
that makes sense.
I don't think he's going anywhere. And this Saints team, well improved from last year. I think they're definitely on the rise, and it looks like to be a very tough, competitive NFC South for the next couple years to come with the Saints and Panthers. But for this, or I'm sorry, the Panthers and Falcons. But for the Saints team, no, they definitely, their defense improved a lot. They got Marshawn Lattimore, who's the lockdown corner, and for Marcus Williams, I think he did get a lot of experience this year, and for him, he's going to have to use this as motivation for next year because, listen, he's going to get a lot of heat. This isn't going to go away anytime soon, right? You essentially were one of the reasons why your team lost in the playoffs. This isn't just like it was a, week one of the regular season, oh, you guys lost the game, but you still have 15 more games to go. This is a pretty big deal. So he's going to, I'm sure the next couple weeks he's going to be pretty down on himself, but I think eventually once he gets out of this funk, he's going to have to use that as motivation for next year, and I think that's the only way you can look at it. You're kind of taught as a defender. I played cornerback, so the same, basically the same position as he did, and you're taught to have a very short memory. You're gonna give up plays. You're gonna get beat sometimes. You're gonna have great plays where you make an interception, you bat the ball down, but you still have to have a short memory because that offense is gonna come right back and gonna try to come at you again. So for him, have as short of a memory as possible. Use it as fuel, but hopefully he can get over this and this doesn't, hurt him going forward because if he can't get over this, he's not going to have a clear mind and he's not going to be able to play well.
Yeah, no, it's a freak accident that happened in this game. I mean, again, we're watching the game and we're all thinking Case Keenum couldn't get the job done, 25 seconds, there's no way. Hey, let's see if they can actually make a pass so they can make a Hail Mary, right? That's what I was thinking. Let's see if Keenum can throw this 10, 15 yards, get it out of bounds, and they'll throw a Hail Mary, right? Because you're not going to try a 67-yard field goal. That's ridiculous. So I was like, whatever. Then when the pass goes up, I'm like, okay, Stephon Diggs obviously has a chance. Now they're going to be in field goal range. And then obviously the missed tackle. You never thought that would happen. And they scored the touchdown. And the celebrations were great, too, for the Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
The guys literally were dumbfounded. They had no idea what happened. Everson Griffin specifically had no idea. It was great. The interviews were great. It really showed you the raw moment of how crazy that ending was. You don't see that as much with Hail Marys and other stuff because you know that play's going. You know, okay, this is the chance right here. If we throw this and we catch it in the end zone, game's over. We win. If we kick this 50-yard field goal and it goes through, we win. Or if this guy misses the field goal, we win. We're trying to get out of bounds, and then we won somehow. So crazy, crazy ending. Good for the Vikings. We're going to predict the Vikings and the Eagles a little bit later in the show, actually at the end of the show, so stay tuned all for that. But we'll move on right now. Vikings get the win. We'll move on. We want to talk about Jags and Steelers next. That was probably the second best game of the weekend, the second best ending of the weekend. Jerry, did you expect this game to be 45-42?
Not at all. Would never have called the score. But I think I did pick
Jared
the Jags
did call
to
the Jags.
win.
He did call the Jags.
I'm going to take that, and I'm not going to let you live that one down.
Well, to be fair, I did say this was the hardest game for me to pick, and it was almost a toss-up. So the score being 45-42, I was close, but you did pick the actual winner.
Okay.
You did have the insight, and I remember I did kind of take some of my analysis off of what you had said anyway. So, Jared, you get the credit. Jags win, and they'll play the Patriots next game. But let's talk about this game real quick. Man, what was going on? Talk about a bad first half. The Steelers, man.
Listen. The Jaguars have their number.
Wow.
Like they come out and during the week, their conferences and their little interviews and stuff with reporters, they're not backing down. Jalen Ramsey, AJ Abuye, all those guys, they are not afraid to come out and speak their minds. And guess what? They can back it up.
Dude, and what were the Steelers doing? They're talking about the Patriots. They're talking about their own individual games.
Mike Mitchell, the Steelers safety, he is eating his words right now because he basically said, I don't know the exact quote, but he's basically like, I don't care. We can play them in hell. We can play them in Haiti. We can play them wherever. We're going to win, and we're going to the Super Bowl. And I
think Mike Mitchell also said that he was looking forward to 2 rematches in a row.
Oh,
as
boy.
well. You got one, Mitchell, because you didn't beat the Jags because your defense let 45 points from Blake freaking Bortles. I can't even say his name.
Oh, my gosh.
It annoys me so much to hear this guy keep succeeding.
I saw a funny meme on Instagram where it had Mike Mitchell's quote, and then it had, I don't know if it was the Jacksonville Jaguars or if it was just a fan, and he said, hey, Mike Mitchell, you can play the Patriots the rest of the year on Madden.
No, that was the Jaguars' actual Twitter account. Their Twitter account trolled Mike Mitchell. Fantastic, right?
Yeah,
and you gotta have this humor when the Steelers being stupid before the game and essentially thinking they're gonna walk over the Jacksonville Jaguars. That didn't happen. Like you mentioned, Jaguars whooped them earlier in the season, and we're whooping them in this game. The only reason the Steelers stayed in this game is because of a couple really, really long passes and nice plays by Steelers receivers.
Right.
And Big Ben also making great throws. Besides that, their offense never really flowed during this game, and even the 45-42 score was closer than it really was because the Jaguars defense was kind of just trying to tick off time later in the game. Most of this game, the Steelers were down 2 possessions and then just ran out of time in the game. But, oh man, the Jaguars, the defense, obviously we know about the defense, but the offense coming out and scoring 45 points, it gives you a little bit of hope that they might have a chance against the Patriots next week. We'll talk about that a little later, but I want to get your take on the Jaguars offense in this game.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the Jaguars offense. It's not flashy. It's not necessarily pretty. You have to lean on Leonard Fournette. He had 3 touchdowns. He barely went over 100 yards.
And he was also hurt in this game, too.
He had 25 carries. You have to keep feeding the beast. You know that Blake Bortles is not a Tom Brady or a Ben Roethlisberger who can sit back and chuck the ball 50 times a game and you expect to win. He only threw the ball 26 times. Had 14 completions, so that's not the best percentage, but I think that's where you have to keep Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
You don't want him to lose the game for you. He had a moderate 214 yards with 1 touchdown. The best thing about that, he had no interceptions.
Yeah, big
and
game.
That is what you have to do. Lean on Leonard Fournette, lean on TJ Yeldon. They had 164 yards rushing on a pretty good Pittsburgh Steelers front. So I think that's their key to success. It's not very flashy. You're going to basically give the other team your playbook. You're going to say, listen, we want to run clock, run the ball, and play great defense. And that, to me, is still what can win championships. Like, I understand Ben Roethlisberger came out. He ended up throwing for almost 500 yards. He had 469 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like, you would think, if you were just to look, take the score away and just look at the numbers, and you saw Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 touchdowns and almost 500 yards, I would always say that the Steelers were going to win.
100%.
But the way that the Jaguars defense played, forcing a turnover, scoring on that turnover.
Yeah.
Was it Miles Jack who scored that touchdown?
I don't remember. No, Miles Jack had an interception.
Yeah, you're right. It was Telvin Smith. He had that
right,
fumble recovery for a touchdown. So, this Jaguars defense is very opportunistic, and you really just have to give this team credit. They do not back down. Obviously, they came out and win at halftime. When you have a 28-14 lead, that gives you a little bit of a cushion to, kind of mess around. And I think that's also why the Steelers were able to get some of those big, long passing plays in the second half, because the Jaguars were being a little bit more lenient. In the first half, the Steelers really didn't get anything done.
No.
So, this is all the credit in the world to the Jaguars. They 100% deserve it. I'm glad they won because not that I would not have wanted to see a Patriots-Steelers rematch, but I think the Jaguars deserve it, right?
Yeah.
The last 5 years, basically building through the draft, having one of the worst records, not only in franchise history, but in league history over a 3-season span. But to be able to turn that around and get that defense set, for them to be here right now is pretty amazing. So I'm on that Jaguars train.
Yeah, no, this style of building through the draft is going throughout sports. I mean, you look at the Houston Astros, who just won the World Series. They were a 100-loss team multiple times in a row. The Jaguars have essentially been a losing team since they've last been in the playoffs. And they've built up possibly the best defense in the NFL, and a comparable offense with guys like Fournette and wide receiver. I mean, think about this. Allen Robinson ain't even playing for the Jaguars, and they're in the conference championship. You know, this offense would be a lot better, or could be a lot better. Allen Hurns has been injured most of this year, too. So this Jaguars team isn't even playing at full strength, and they're still beating the Steelers, and they're still beating the Bills, and they're moving on to play in the conference championship. The one thing that impressed me, I think, the most about this game was, and if you follow my Twitter, you know that I don't think Blake Bortles is that good of a quarterback. I've been saying the entire playoffs, there's no way the Jaguars get to the Super Bowl with Blake Bortles. I'm having to eat my words every single week because this guy is getting better and better. The one time where I thought, hey, you know what, my opinion of him might be wrong. I can remember that the Jaguars offense was not doing well, and the Steelers, I think, were within a touchdown of them. And were playing really well, and they had all the momentum. Blake Bortles goes all the way down the field, takes the Jaguars offense down into the red zone, and makes a pass to the fullback for a touchdown on a great play action. That's where my mind kind of changed about this Jaguars team, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this team actually does have a chance to make the Super Bowl. Maybe this team is better than I think, and maybe Blake Bortles is stepping up in these situations and actually making good plays. And this is not what he did in his entire career. I guess all it took was for him to get to the playoffs, for him to finally really play well as a quarterback. Also, his rushing has been key as well for Jaguars. I mean, I think every rush he takes is a big play.
Right.
So
it's a positive.
It's a positive gain. Yes. It's him getting out of the situation. So Jaguars are impressing me right now, and it's too bad for the Steelers. They need to figure something out. Their coaching was awful in that fourth quarter as well. The not kicking or kicking an onside kick for no reason. When I believe they were down by 10 or whatever. It just didn't make a lot of sense. And then some of the play calling later in the game, not kicking a field goal and giving yourself a chance was questionable as well. And we'll talk about something that happened with their coaching staff in Do You Care a little bit later. But let's move on to the Falcons and Eagles. This was a game, Jared, I thought the Falcons were going to win for sure.
Should have won.
I did not think the Eagles had a chance in this game. And the Eagles' defense impressed me in this game. They held the Falcons' defense or offense to 10 points. The Atlanta offense kind of went back to what they were earlier this season, where you never knew what you were going to get. The Falcons, the last couple games, it looked like, hey, they might have been returning that Super Bowl form. Now, not so much, and it showed against a good Eagles defense. The Eagles, I'm going to call it, upset the Falcons in this game, and they move on to the conference championship. But man, did the Falcons disappoint.
They did. Talk about inconsistency. I mean, I feel like we're talking about the Carolina Panthers here, right? I mean, the Falcons up and down to start the season, and then they end the season on a pretty hot streak, right? Coming into this game without Carson Wentz, it's like, yeah, Philadelphia had home field advantage, and they have a good defense. But for Atlanta to only score 10 points, are you kidding? And nothing in the second half?
Yeah.
When you have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, you have Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman as your two-headed monster running backs.
Yeah.
Like, that's pathetic.
Devontae Freeman.
There's no excuse for this at all.
Devontae Freeman with 7 yards.
10
rushes, 7 yards. Jared.
7 yards. Unbelievable. There's no excuse for this at all. I don't. It doesn't matter what the Matt Ryan's passing stats were. I don't care if he throws for 400 yards or 200 yards. You have to find a way to get into the end zone and capitalize on not having Carson Wentz for the Eagles. I don't blame this on the Falcons defense at all because they only gave up 15 points. If you, as a defense, only give up 15 points and you have Atlanta's offense, you have to win those games. They're like, no question, you have to win. So the Eagles are moving on, and to me, they got lucky because the Falcons just didn't show up, in my opinion. The Falcons should have easily come in, won this game, and they should be hosting a playoff game against Minnesota right now. They should be playing against Minnesota right now. It's just really, if I'm Atlanta, I'm like dumbfounded. If I'm Dan Quinn and I'm that coaching staff, I'm beyond pissed because there's no excuse.
Well, you know what they did just yesterday?
What they did?
They said they're going to bring Steve Sarkisian back as their offensive coordinator.
Oh boy.
So, I guess they don't know what to do. I guess they don't realize what their problem is that their offense is not the same, and needs to figure out. But Steve Sarkisian is coming back to the Falcons.
Yeah, there's some type of consistency for you.
Yeah, bad coaching.
Yeah, bad coaching. I was watching the majority of this game at home, and I kept thinking, okay, it's a playoff game, right? So I think teams are going to be a little more careful in certain situations. But at the end of the day, like when getting into the end of the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter, I'm like, all right, when is this Falcons offense going to open up? When are they going to hit Julio Jones for a deep pass, or at least attempt a deep pass and try to spread open the Eagles defense? Because I felt like the Eagles defense was able to just clamp down on everyone. It's like they knew what the Falcons were going to do. So they weren't afraid of a deep ball like Mohamed Sanu or anyone getting behind them. It was almost like they knew what the Falcons were going to do. And it became pretty predictable that the Falcons just were a little too vanilla, in my opinion, for a playoff game. And I don't understand it, man. Like I said, it's to only put up 10 points in a game when the Eagles don't have Carson Wentz, and you only give up 15 as a defense. It makes zero sense.
It's terrible. And there's a couple things that disappointed me about this game. Number one, Falcons. I like to watch Falcons offense go, because when they go, it's entertaining to watch. It's guys wide open 30 yards down the field. It's Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman with 15-yard runs. That's not what we had here. We had about 300 yards of offense, no touchdowns from the Falcons, one touchdown from the Falcons, and not much entertainment. Also, the Eagles winning this game also ruins the Vikings possibly having all home games in the playoffs as well, including the Super Bowl. So a couple things the Falcons ruined for me this weekend. Number one, they were my Super Bowl pick, so there goes my Super Bowl pick, right? And then the Vikings thing, which would have been my second thing, is like, hey, at least if the Falcons don't get to the Super Bowl, let's have the Vikings have all the home games. This didn't happen. Didn't happen. Right. Disappointing. So
very much. And I think the biggest reason why I'm a little upset is because I don't want to see the Eagles win.
I know.
Right.
Well, that's true. I'm not even a Cowboys fan, but screw the Eagles, man.
I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I would have much rather saw the Falcons. I'm Minnesota all the way right now.
Okay.
All the way.
I don't even know who I want to cheer. I don't really care who you know what? I will cheer for the Vikings because they got a lot of UCLA guys on their team.
Okay.
They have the UCLA guys. So that's the only reason. We got 3 minutes left in the segment. Do we even need 3 minutes to talk about the Patriots and
I don't think so. It's going to take about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yeah, the Patriots did what we thought they'd do. I did think the Titans would put up a better fight, and they did in the first quarter and a little bit in that second half. But the Patriots did their thing, and they pulled away. Nothing surprising here. The Patriots win the game and they advance to the AFC Championship. But can we at least say maybe this stupid news about Belichick and Brady and Kraft was a little bogus, because it didn't seem like it affected them at all.
No, and I said this on last week's show that winning solves a lot of problems.
That's true.
Right? So if some, fluke thing were to happen and the Titans were to win this game, I guarantee you those reports would start to pop up again.
Yeah, it's
but
true.
Winning will, at least put aside all of those specific issues. And I know that the last thing that these players and Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft want right now, while they're trying to make a Super Bowl run, is any type of confrontation or something that is going to take their minds off of football specifically. So no, I don't think it is as big of a deal as the media is making of it. Do I think there could be something there? Yes, and I think that will be addressed at the end of the season.
Yes.
But I think this is a first-class organization, and they understand that, listen, right now, we're in playoff mode. We're trying to go to the Super Bowl. Let's brush whatever we have aside, and when the season's over, then we'll deal with it. So I think that's what they're doing right now. As far as this game goes, Tennessee came out and scored. I believe it was their first or second possession and took a quick 7-0 lead. And really, when you look at the stats, Mariota, he threw for 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So he played a decent game. It's just, listen, the Patriots, they're just more talented across the board. Like I said, I think if the Chiefs were in this game, I think this would have been a much closer, much better contest. The Titans just did not have the firepower or the talent to go up against the Patriots, especially in Foxborough. Simple as that.
No, there was no chance. And the Patriots did what they were supposed to do. They win the game. Brady, 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. Patriots also get Rex Burkhead back for the next game. So not only did the rushing attack is already pretty solid for them with a bunch of running backs, they gain another one in Rex Burkhead. So they weren't even at full strength at the end of this game. But so looking forward, it's Patriots Jags and it's Vikings Eagles in the next round. We'll talk about that in the final segment of the day. We'll predict who's going to get to the Super Bowl and a little bit more, maybe a little more NFL talk as far as news goes in that last segment. But We'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little NBA. Guys getting a little feisty in the NBA lately.
Bit.
A lot of fights. So we'll talk about that. We'll do an NBA segment on the other side of this quick break.
Keenum's going to try to work the ball on the boundary. Keenum steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
This is my preseason. I have to figure out ways to get my legs back. Obviously, all my shots that I miss are short. And like I always say, I don't have the rhythm that I'm used to having in that field of playing at a high level each and every night. And on top of that, we don't practice. So my rhythm has to come in games and my practice has to come in games. So I'm not in panic mode. I know things will change. And like I always say, a slow grind. Like I really have to believe in that and trust in that and know that in due time, those things will come back.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa. We got some heated exchanges going on here. Aflalo and Bailey, this has been brewing for a while, and Aflalo is hot.
I told you Bailey's no punk. He had Aaron Aflalo in a headlock, and he was going to break his neck.
Gordon knocked away by Wallace, but right back in, and Capella will finish.
And Trevor's having words over in the bench right now.
Go again.
Yeah.
Oh, and they just tossed. They just tossed Griffin.
Well, Reza better not go out the tunnel that way because that's where the Clippers bench is. And this is smart right here. Try to get him to go out the other way.
Who was his teammate in Houston telling him to move on. Griffin is gone.
I'm not quite. Oh, I think he was having words with Austin Rivers. Trevor Ariza.
Cover 2 podcast back on OC Rock Radio with a little NBA talk and specifically some fighting potentially going on with the Clippers and the Rockets. Nick, I really want to get your thoughts on this because I know you saw more of the game than I did.
Yes.
But a little hostility between Chris Paul and his former teammates?
I guess so, man. I didn't think it would be like this with Paul coming back. Now, as a fan of the Clippers, I'm a fan of both the LA teams. I don't really pick favorites with the Lakers and Clippers. I tend to just recently we've had one team be good and one team be bad, so it's pretty easy to cheer for one or the other. You know, you kind of cheer for the Clippers in the playoffs because they're making the playoffs, and you're cheering for the Lakers to get better. But as far as me being a Clipper fan, I did not like the fact that Chris Paul left. Okay, you go from being a title contender, and a lot of people probably won't say they're a title contender, but when you have Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, and Blake Griffin, you're a title contender. But you go from a title contender to you don't know what the team is. You know, you have Patrick Beverley as your point guard, and you got Sam Dekker in the lineup. All of a sudden, Chris Paul kind of creates this. You're kind of a half team now. I was a little disappointed in Chris Paul, and I did not like the fact that he left. But it's over with now. He clearly made the right decision. It's not like the Rockets are not playing well. They're one of the best teams in the NBA, especially with Chris Paul on the floor. So there was a little bit like, okay, well, he decided to leave, and the Clippers obviously aren't that good of a team, and the Rockets are. So it made sense. But this game, and it didn't start like this, but when you got into the second half, it definitely started getting more physical and chippy. And Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were kind of going at it during the game. A lot of hard fouls by Paul and Griffin to each other. A couple times, Blake Griffin kind of messing with Chris Paul, slapping the ball out of his hand after a play, giving him a little bit of elbows after he'd been fouled. And Chris Paul, you could see, was getting frustrated because the Rockets were also not playing well, and the Clippers were playing really well in this game. They were kind of dominating the pace. And then it all came to a head when Blake Griffin, I believe, bumped into Mike D'Antoni on the sideline, and Mike D'Antoni kind of went after him, and then Paul kind of had it and ended up kind of getting in Blake Griffin's face and pushing him. Then later, Ariza and Blake Griffin had multiple altercations that ended up getting both of them get thrown out with about a minute to go. And then Austin Rivers chirping on the sidelines didn't help either and kind of extended the whole thing. That is where I thought it would leave. You know, we had bad blood on the court. Great. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they're not friends. All right, good. Now we have a little bit of a rivalry here. But it didn't end, Jared. It did not end. And as you've heard, this is not even the biggest news about this game. It wasn't that the on-court stuff was chippy. It's that apparently the Rockets tried to get into the Clippers locker room after the game, and I'm hearing names: Chris Paul, James Harden, Trevor Ariza, Clint Capella being a decoy at the front door, Chris Paul finding a secret way in to the locker room because, of course, he's played for the Clippers for the last 6 years. Crazy, crazy story. And I don't really know what to think about necessarily what would have happened in there, but nothing ended up actually happening. The security quickly got the Rockets out, and then the LAPD was called for some weird reason to an NBA game because the players are in each other's faces. But, man, I guess there's really bad blood, and the Rockets came out the game and said, we're not going to forget about this. And the Clippers and Rockets played 2 more games. So I'm excited about those next 2 games. Jared, I want to get your take on this now.
When's that next matchup? Because I will be tuned in.
I might have to buy tickets to that next matchup.
I can guarantee you that. No, listen, I think it is good to have a little bit of bad blood in the NBA.
Yes,
I think the NBA has gotten to a point where it's gotten soft.
Absolutely.
If I can use that right
word.
It
is.
And I understand player safety and wanting to represent the game in the right way for the youth and all that stuff, but to have some rivalries and some chippiness to a game, absolutely, I'm completely okay with. To hear that guys were potentially trying to go into the other team's locker room after the end of the game, that's where things start to, get a little gray area for me. There's obviously a lot of different reports about this. Did Chris Paul really instigate this and try to go through a secret back door? There's other reports that he was trying to pull Trevor Ariza away, and Ariza was really the instigator.
Which would make sense. The Ariza thing makes a lot more sense.
Because Ariza and Blake Griffin really had a beef going on, and this isn't the first time that they've had a beef. So who knows what really actually happened in there. What I do know is that the Clippers won this game. The Clippers seem to be finding their stride a little bit. Obviously, James Harden was out. He's supposedly coming back for their next game. So if James Harden was in this game, I think they would have clearly beaten the Clippers. You know what? This is a regular season game. As far as the actual game goes, that doesn't really matter in the whole grand scheme of things. What does matter for both of these teams and more or less for these coaches is getting these players under control. Because here's the thing. In the NBA, every player has up to 16 technical fouls in the regular season. After you hit 16, when you get to number 17, you start to get suspended. So even though we're getting up to the halfway point of the season, I'm not exactly sure where these Trevor Ariza and Blake Griffin specifically are on their technical foul number list. But you don't want guys starting to creep up to that number 16 and then having to potentially get suspended later on in the season. Listen, I think we can both agree that the Western Conference is clearly a lot more competitive and a lot better of a conference than the Eastern, right? So for these teams, the Clippers and the Rockets, who, in my opinion, are both playoff teams and are going to be in that hunt, I don't know where they're necessarily going to fall, but they're going to be there. You don't want guys potentially being suspended later on in the year when you have to still contend and win games in the final week or 2 weeks of the season. So I think what I'm really alluding to here is, all right, there's beef going on between these two teams. Keep it on the court, but keep it, to an extent, right? It's okay if you want to give a guy an elbow, or if it's during the play, you're going to have a skirmish, you're going to try to knock the ball away from the guy's hand, right? Something like that. But when you want to, have a real flagrant foul, you want to give a guy an elbow to the head. You want to keep chirping after the refs give you multiple opportunities, and then you want to take it into the locker room. That's where suspensions come in, and that's where you're starting to hurt your team. And listen, I get it. These guys are grown men. They don't like being disrespected, and I completely agree with that. And you have to stand your ground. But at the end of the day, you don't want to hurt your team. And the Rockets lost, so really this is a bigger loss for the Rockets than it is for the Clippers. But you know what? It was good to see some fight in these guys. But they need to keep it to a minimum, because like I said, at the end of the day, when guys start getting suspended, that's when you're hurting your team, and then you're not helping your chances of making the playoffs.
Here's the solution: Clippers and Rockets, just get texts against each other, and you guys won't reach the limit.
Yeah,
that's all I'm asking. Don't get texts the rest of the season. Just get texts in these games.
I want a Clippers Rockets playoff series. Give me 7 games of that all day long.
Well, it could happen. And the way the NBA in the West is weirdly ending up is that there's 4 teams at the top that are kind of separating themselves from the rest of the field as far as records go. Not necessarily that they're better teams than the teams below, but the record's below. And then you have a bunch of teams fighting for the 5th spot. Like the Clippers, in this single game, went from not being in the playoffs to about 2 games away from the 5th spot. So you can see how I'm going to disagree with you one thing, that this was just a regular season game. I think this meant a lot to the Clippers because they are trying to get into the playoffs because they've been hampered by injury. If the Clippers had a full roster, they would probably be in the 5th spot right now in the playoffs, and maybe even the 4th spot. They may have a way better record. The Clippers have struggled with injuries. Patrick Beverley's been out for the whole year. Milos Teodosic has been out. Blake Griffin's been out. DeAndre Jordan's out right now. They haven't had, I think they've had like 20-something lineups this year. Something crazy like that, starting lineups. So they struggled. So I disagree with you that this was just a normal game. It didn't matter to both teams. I do think it mattered a little bit more to the Clippers. I think these games matter because they're trying to be in the playoffs. They're over 500 for the first time, I believe, in a while. They were over 500 early in the season, but it's been like 2-3 months. So, but yeah, I like to see the rivalry with these two guys. And the other thing about this game, and not a lot of people realize, is that the Rockets essentially traded half their team for Chris Paul. So these guys are all playing their former team. It's Sam Decker, it's Montrezl Harrell, it's Lou Williams, it's Patrick Beverley, who's not playing, but he's sitting there on the bench probably chirping. I mean, Patrick Beverley was chirping on the sideline. So not only do you have the Chris Paul Blake Griffin thing with this rivalry, but you also have all these players just kind of getting shipped away and kind of thrown away to the Clippers. Like, hey, we want Chris Paul, we don't need you guys. And these guys are playing well for the Clippers as well. So all of that, I think, works into the fact that this is going to be one of the top rivalries in the NBA, at least this year, and maybe moving on, too, because Blake Griffin and Chris Paul clearly didn't like each other. This is a little bit of a Kobe Shaq thing where even though they were 2 stars, even though they had somewhat success with each other, they didn't like each other. And this isn't DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul, it's Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. And I expect them not to necessarily see eye to eye the rest of their careers.
Right, and you know what? And that's totally okay.
Absolutely.
That's okay with that. A lot of people are going to say, well, Chris Paul should have stayed because the Clippers offered him a lot more money. They basically offered him a $200 million contract, a max contract. And the Houston Rockets were in the 120.
Well, I think the thing with the Rockets
range
here is that because he got traded, he didn't sign with the Rockets, I don't believe. I think he will get signed. But there's always the threat the Rockets is going to, like if they have a bad year, they just go, no, we don't need you. And they throw them in the free agency.
Yeah,
so
I think there had to have been some type of deal under the table in place. I don't think Chris Paul would have went to the Rockets without some type of guarantee or something, saying, hey, we're going to take care of you eventually.
True. Yeah.
Obviously, through endorsements and everything, this guy is never going to be poor again in his life. But knowing that he left money on the table with the Clippers, I think he wanted to get that guarantee and that satisfaction of knowing, hey, eventually the Rockets are going to take care of me, and I'm either going to get that $200 million from the Rockets or I'm going to get something very, very close to that. At the end of the day, for Chris Paul, he's 32. He's been in the league for a lot of years now. This is about winning championships. Obviously, he wants to be paid what he deserves, but it's about getting that ring and getting that championship because that's the one thing on his resume that he does not have. So he can have all the money in the world and have this $200 million contract, but you end your career without a championship, and that's gonna haunt him, and he's gonna be thinking about that for the rest of his life. So I think that's the main reason why he left the Clippers. They have multiple opportunities. Making the playoffs and just losing in the first round, whether it was to the Memphis Grizzlies or the Golden State Warriors. I felt like both those teams just had the Clippers' numbers while Chris Paul was with that team. So I think he wanted a fresh start. He's got James Harden, arguably one of the best players in the NBA. You've got Trevor Ariza, Mike D'Antoni, who likes to push the ball up and down the court. That whole team seems to be gelling when they can all stay healthy. They need James Harden. They need Chris Paul to be healthy, and I think they have a better chance of winning a championship than Chris Paul did with the Clippers.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And with Houston, there's no. I'm just gonna say this: there's no way they don't sign back Chris Paul because with the two on the court, I think they're still almost like undefeated with him and
they
Harden.
Went like 14-0.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and they've both been kind of hurt at times too, but. This is a team that can win a championship, I believe. If they can stick together and they play the way they do, if they play to their extent, they can stick with the Warriors in the game. So, I don't know why they wouldn't sign Chris Paul. We're not saying that's happening, but we're just, we're inferring. You never know what the Rockets are thinking. especially with a guy like Daryl Morey, who kind of thinks analytically it might just be like, well, that's not working out. Let's get rid of it. But a couple other fights to note in the NBA. I'm blanking on the other. Well, Aaron Aflalo was Tuesday.
He took some wings.
Threw haymakers. I can't even say the guy's name he was fighting with on Timberwolves. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But Aaron Aflalo threw haymakers. I know Russell Westbrook got 2 texts and got thrown out for essentially trying to fight a ref during a game. He got really mad at a ref.
He's going to get fined for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Ben Simmons and Kyle Lowry calling each other in the locker room and saying, let's settle this off the court. Low fight. NBA's getting a little feisty.
A little bit.
Yeah, we saw Ibaka and I believe it was James Johnson get into it a couple weeks or like last week too. So I like it, man. Every day we got a new fight.
You think these players are trying to send a message that this league is not as soft as people think?
They should. I mean, okay. And here's a good example. If you watched Inside the NBA after the game, Charles Barkley and Shaq literally laughed at the Clippers and Rockets fight.
Right.
They were literally laughing their asses off.
I mean, when those guys played, this was a typical Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this wouldn't even make headline news.
Exactly.
And now we've been talking about this for almost 20 minutes, right? So, no, of course those guys are going to laugh. They're going to say, hey, like when we played, obviously those were both big guys, power forwards and centers, so they dealt with a little more bruising and that type of thing. But to them, this is nothing. But the way that the NBA has gone in today's, today's league, it's a lot softer. It's a lot more player safety, which is a good thing. But no, I'm okay with the chippiness. The whole Aaron Aflalo thing, literally swinging like could have busted a dude's jaw.
Yeah,
that's a little much. But you want to stand up for yourself. You want to not back down and get in the guy's face type of thing. I'm totally okay with that. And at the whole soft label, that is a bad image, and once that is with you, I don't think that ever goes
And here's
away.
the thing, when baseball has these giant brawls where guys are bringing bats into fights and guys are throwing at each other 96 miles an hour, and if hockey, the Kings and Ducks played this weekend, remember I kind of teased the game a little bit last week, they ended up having 3 fights in 4 seconds, 3 consecutive fights in a row in that game. So and then obviously football, they punch each other with helmets on. They don't care. So the NBA has a little bit of an image problem with the physicalities, where it's kind of a fake physicality. They like to flop. They like to fake like they're going to fight. And so the best we're going to get is guys trying to get into a locker room, and they probably weren't even trying to fight anyways. They're, what's the head of the players union going to be throwing haymakers in the locker room? No way. Boy. So the NBA does have a little bit of an image problem as far as their fake fighting goes, but you're right. Player safety, in the one sport that really doesn't need player safety, which is kind of funny, has the most player safety and has the stingiest rules. So good for the NBA. Let's move on. The Cavaliers and Warriors played each other in a finals rematch. It's the second time they played this year, the first time on Christmas, second day on MLK Day. The Cavaliers, they lose again. And this isn't really necessarily about the game. It's about what the hell is going on with the Cavaliers. I think they're like 2-9 since they lost to the Warriors on Christmas Day. And then now they have Isaiah Thomas back and they're still not winning. Jared, what is going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I don't think the main problem, and Isaiah Thomas actually came out, I believe it was yesterday or Monday, and literally said this team does not practice. Like, they don't practice.
Why don't they practice?
They have a lot of veterans on this team, and with the NBA schedule, there's 82 games, so a lot of times you're gonna have a back-to-back. You're traveling, you're going into a different city, getting in at 1 a.m, trying to get some sleep, waking up, and then having a game at 4 o'clock. So the schedule has something to do with it. But guess what? All other 31 teams in the NBA have to deal with it. Okay, so it's not just the Cavaliers. I think the main issue is this is what Tyronn Lue wants. I think this is just his coaching style. I think LeBron James has a big thing to do with this as well. Obviously, he's the superstar. He's the voice of that locker room. It's especially for Isaiah Thomas. This is his first year with the Cavaliers. He obviously was not there for training camp because he was rehabbing his injury. So he didn't even get a chance to be with the team in training camp when you have the most practices.
Yeah.
And now that you get into the regular season, he's basically having to learn on the fly. I mean, he's been in team meetings and he, at least mentally knows the playbook. But to get out there and practice on the court is a whole different thing. And he never got that opportunity. So it doesn't really surprise me at all that he came out and said this. I think it's one of those things. I think they really miss Kyrie Irving. For as much as Kyrie wanted to leave, and obviously I don't think LeBron James really wanted him to go because I think they paired well together. I think that is the biggest issue right now is Kyrie or oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Isaiah Thomas is not Kyrie Irving. Isaiah Thomas is a really, really good shooting point guard. He is not necessarily a facilitator first type of guy who likes to get others involved. He can put up 30, 40 points a night, and that's great, but he's also a smaller defender. So the Cavaliers like to play a lot of good team defense, and Isaiah Thomas is small, so you can't necessarily say, hey, you go lock down this guy, or you got him one-on-one, right, in the corner and lock him down, not like Kyrie Irving could do. So I think it's a mixture of Kyrie Irving not being there, Tyronn Lue not wanting to practice with his team because he wants his team to stay fresh and healthy and have their legs for the end of the season and the postseason. But for Isaiah Thomas specifically, when you can't practice with the team and then you basically have to learn on the court mid-game, that's going to be an issue, right? So it's also, I think the last thing I'm going to say before I hand the mic over to you is this Cavaliers team knows they're going to make the playoffs. They play in the East, a very weak conference. All they're looking to do is get into the playoffs. They're trying to smooth sail past the regular season, right? Make sure they stay as injury-free as possible. And once they get into the playoffs, they think they're just going to turn it on. Right now, we're basically midway through the year. We've got the All-Star break coming up in February. So this team is kind of just coasting. And they're like, hey, we lose a couple games, no big deal. We're still going to be top 4 in the East, more than likely first or second, with the Celtics right there as well. And they want to make it to the playoffs. So for them, I don't think it's fun right now. I don't think they're having a whole lot of fun. Their fun is getting to the playoffs and trying to win a championship. Right now, playing the Orlando Magic is that doesn't seem fun for them, I don't think. No. So I think that's one of the bigger reasons why they're in a slump.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the thing about practice. I did not know that. I did not know that they don't practice. And here's the thing, okay? When you have a brand new teammate that has never, it's essentially a trade acquisition, Isaiah Thomas, in the middle of the season, right? This is what this is. He's been injured all year. He hasn't played a single lick. He comes back. Guys, suck it up and get on the practice court and help the guy out, okay? I get, and what you're saying is correct. They are going to make the playoffs, so there is a little bit of an ego there. They don't have to worry. They're 26-17 right now. Probably a worse record than everybody thought, but they're probably going to win their division, and they're probably going to be a top 3 seed in the playoffs. Maybe even a 1-2 seed. But get on the court, guys. Help the guy out. He's one of your stars. He doesn't know the playbook, if the Cavs even have a playbook, if it's not just LeBron just calling out plays. But Coach LeBron needs to come and create a practice for the Cavs, a couple of them. I get you guys are old, but you guys just need to suck it up sometimes. Yeah, you might be a little tired. Some of you might have to take games off and stuff like that. But get this guy some practice. Help Isaiah Thomas out because he needs help. He's not playing well. The team's not playing well. Although they do play the Orlando Magic, who are 13-31 this year. So I'm going to guarantee the Cavs get a win tonight.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, guaranteed.
And more
if
likely,
they lose tonight, they should just quit the season.
No, more likely, no Aaron Aflalo. He will probably be suspended.
Unless he's appealing his suspension.
Potentially. Yeah. So if the Cavaliers lose tonight,
they should just quit the season.
Really?
Yeah.
It's over. Just
if you lose to the Orlando Magic are pathetic this year. They're bad. They're disappointing, but they're bad. And these other teams they're losing to, the Raptors, Pacers, Timberwolves, they also beat the Magic earlier this week. Celtics, these are all good teams, okay? You're not beating good teams. And then the Warriors, of course. You need to beat the horrible teams, okay? The Warriors a couple times this year almost lost to the Lakers. It's inexcusable. Okay, you can't do that. The difference is the Warriors are the number 1 seed in the NBA, and they can kind of afford to lose some games, and they can afford to not care sometimes. But Cavs need to win this game. But yeah, they needed to practice. I think that's the one thing here. The practice is the biggest thing here. And if you can't practice, what's his name? Isaiah Thomas is not going to get the playbook.
No.
And
I think it comes down to they're playing down to their competition.
Yeah.
Right? They're kind of
every
saying,
game.
We know we're good. We know that we have the talent. We have the best player in the planet. We've got Isaiah Thomas. We have Kevin Love, J.R. Smith. We have all these guys, Tristan Thompson, right? We have a good bench. We know we're good. So I think when they look at an Orlando Magic and they see their record, it's kind of like it's got to be tough. It's just human nature to not want to get up for that game. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're playing the Warriors or the Celtics to where you know you're playing another formidable opponent, right? When you're playing a bad team and you know you're good, it's some nights you're not going to come out and you're not going to try as hard. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want to win, but it's just like, it's midway through the year, and this game doesn't really have much influence on your playoff perspective or where you're going to be in the playoff seedings.
Yes.
It's like, I think it's tough sometimes for these guys to get up for these games. So I'm not trying to make an excuse at all, because they should easily come out and just whoop. Like, LeBron James should not have to play in the fourth quarter. They should win by like 25, 30 points. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Magic know that the Cavaliers are kind of back on their heels right now. So they're going to come out and they're going to want to win, and they're going to play chippy and play hard. So for the Cavaliers, I think this is, they need to come out and make somewhat of a statement and say, hey, listen, we haven't had the best stretch in the last couple weeks, but we can still come out and dominate when we want. So I think what they need to do is put their heads down. LeBron James needs to take charge, because this is his team, and they need to come out and win by about 30. And that I think would shut some people up.
I agree. They need to beat the crap out of the Magic. Are they playing tonight or tomorrow? Tomorrow, the 18th. Okay, so that's it for this segment. Cavs need to play better, and the NBA needs to keep fighting. That's what I think you should take away from that segment. We'll be right back with a little segment called Do You Care? So
Let's
we'll
go.
be right back on the other side of this break with a lot of good questions.
He's absolutely right. He deserves his money. He deserves to be the highest paid running back in football. He deserves a long-term deal. The sport is entirely too violent for him to be going out there on one-year franchise tag offers. There is no way on earth that can be justified.
The San Francisco Giants make a deal to get Andrew McCutchen in the last year of his contract. This is a guy, Dan, who from 2011 to 2014 was a 7-win player.
The Pirates also made another move over the weekend prior to the McCutchen deal, as they sent pitcher Garrett Cole to the Astros in exchange for 4 players. Pitchers Joe Musgrove and Michael Felice, as well as third baseman Colin Moran and outfielder Jason Martin.
First of all, this franchise was horrendous when Malarkey and his regime came in, and they revitalized this thing, even taking them to the playoffs. And you have the audacity to tell this man the week thereof, if you don't win this last game, all of you guys are fired. And matter of fact, then after you win this game, we don't know if we're going to retain you anyway after they shook up the world. Let me tell you something. That's total disrespect. I don't blame Malarkey one bit for not coming back to that nonsense that they're doing.
Back here on the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Nick Neenan.
And I'm Jared Smith.
And Jared, I ask you this every week. Do you know what time it is
And
right
I
now?
never get tired of it. It is
Time for Do You Care? Do you care? Do you care?
Are we gonna get a
Do you care?
chant going on?
We have to. I have to think of something different every week.
A little bit.
I've sung before. I've yelled from across the room.
You have a very nice voice, by the way.
Thank you very much. And one of these times I'm going to walk through the door saying it in the background. So that is when I get the okay to do that, of course. And I don't have to hold a mic that is attached to the board. So that's a lot of inside radio right there that you don't need to know. But nonetheless, it's time for Do You Care? And Jared, guess what? You get the first question today. If you didn't know that. So Jared, do you care that Lane Kiffin hired an offensive coordinator and his name is Charlie Weis Jr.?
This I do care, because this is very, very interesting. Charlie Weis Jr. is 24 years old.
Ooh, that's young.
24. He is the youngest coach. It doesn't matter if it's coordinator, head coach in college football right now.
Yeah, and besides graduate assistants, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So Charlie Weis Jr. obviously has basically stepped in and followed his dad's footsteps. Charlie Weis Sr. Most notably was a coordinator with the Patriots during one of their couple first Super Bowl runs. Then he was the head coach at Notre Dame for a few years, didn't really do well, went on to be the head coach at Kansas, and now I don't know if he's officially retired. I know he hasn't coached in the last couple of years, but his son, Charlie Weis Jr., has basically followed him wherever his dad has gone. Most recently, he was the, I believe, tight ends coach at Florida Atlantic under Lane Kiffin. When Lane Kiffin was at Alabama, Charlie Weis Jr. was with him as well as an assistant role. And then he was also, for a brief period, with the Atlanta Falcons under Steve Sarkisian. So he's obviously, for being only 24 years old, been around and obviously assumed a lot of knowledge. And Lane Kiffin has already come out and said that He's way ahead of his time as far as being a student of the game. So obviously Lane Kiffin has done really well for Florida Atlantic so far this year. Turned that program around, not just with his name but also with his record. I believe they had over 10 wins this season. So it'll be very interesting. Something that is that people will be keeping an eye on. Can this 24-year-old really lead a group of college kids who aren't that much younger than he is? I think that'll be a very interesting dynamic to see. But I'm very excited. And I think it's great to see a lot of young guys getting an opportunity. Obviously, Sean McVay with the LA Rams. How old is he? 30, 31?
31,
right?
Yeah.
So he's obviously very, very young as a head coach. And, these guys getting head starts at young ages, I think it's really, really great. And hopefully he does well. Nick, do you care that Mike Mularkey is out as the Titans head coach?
No, I don't care, but I do think it's a disservice to him. I don't think he earned the right to get fired. I mean, he took the team to the playoffs for the first time in how many years, right? So this didn't make a lot of sense. I don't know what Titans are thinking here. I don't know necessarily where you're going to find a better coach. Most of the big-time names are off the market unless you're going after a Jack Del Rio or someone like that, I guess. But this one didn't make a lot of sense, and I don't necessarily know why the Titans gave up on Mularkey so quickly. He had changed the culture there. Like I said, he made the playoffs. He won a playoff game, too. But, I guess maybe losing to the Patriots and getting dismantled by Bill Belichick could get you fired, even if you had success pretty much the entire season. So, Mike Mularkey, no longer the Titans coach, definitely didn't deserve it. But that's what happened. So we'll see if the Titans end up hiring as their new head coach. Another head coach opening in the NFL right there. Jared, switching topics a little bit. Do you care that Garrett Cole was traded to the Houston Astros?
Yes, I do care, because the Houston Astros, not only the World Series champions, just reloaded completely. Listen, Cole, he was the number 1 overall pick in 2011. Has had kind of an up and down year. He's just like a lot of other pitchers in this league, had dealt with a lot of nagging injuries. He had a pretty good year, solid year last year in 2015, being able to stay healthy for the most part of the year. Listen, I think for the Astros, I think the great thing about this trade for Cole is that he gets to come into a team that is so talented and so loaded that he doesn't have to have the pressure of being the number 1 guy. He can. I'm sure throughout the season they're going to move him around. They still have Dallas Keuchel, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So they have Keuchel and Cole along with the rest of their rotation. So he's not going to have that pressure of having to be the number 1 guy and having to, I don't have to come out and have 20 starts a year. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just 15 or whatever the rotation decides to be. I think that's the biggest key with this trade is his psyche, and that, listen, I'm coming into a great team. All I have to do is be me. I don't need to be anything else than that. I don't have to go above and beyond these crazy expectations of having to carry this team on my back and to win, right? This team has already been there before, and he is just there to add a bigger piece to the puzzle. So for him, I think it's fantastic. I'm sure there's a lot of Pittsburgh Pirates fans out there who aren't so happy with this trade. There's also another trade that we're going to get into in just a minute, but the Pirates have been dealing and not necessarily acquiring lately. So listen, they got back some prospects, good prospects, because the Astros have a very, very good farm system. But for them, I think they're somewhat of a rebuilding mode. I think when you deal some of your top players, it kind of shows that you're not necessarily giving up, but you are, in a sense, building for the future. So I don't necessarily think the Pirates are going to be contenders in the next couple of years. But for Garrett Cole specifically, you have to be stoked, right? Going from the Pirates to the World Series champions. I mean, how can you not be happy with that? Nick, sticking with baseball and specifically the Pirates, do you care that Andrew McCutchen was traded from the Pirates to the Giants?
Yes, I do care, because the Giants, like you just mentioned, the Astros, they won the World Series and they're reloading. Giants are reloading as well. They've already acquired Evan Longoria, all-star third baseman. They get Madison Bumgarner back, their ace, essentially. They get an ace coming back after a bad year and an injury. And now they get former MVP Andrew McCutchen, who's going to play one of the corner outfield spots, probably left since Hunter Pence is still right. Now, Pence has a tendency to get injured a lot, so that's why you say, hey, he's going to play one of the corner positions. But hey, it's a good pickup for the Giants. I obviously am not happy for them that they picked up Andrew McCutchen, being a Dodger fan, but hey, they're doing what they can. I think the Giants realize what a lot of MLB fans realize is that they had a bad fluke year last year. They had a lot of injuries. Their relievers were terrible. Obviously, when you don't have your ace, it's tough. Cueto and Samardzija didn't have the best years in trying to help. And the Giants ended up being 40 games back of the Dodgers, okay? They were in last place. Dodgers were in first place. Now, they've added 2 All-Stars. They get their ace back. The Giants, I'm not ready to say, are like contenders in the MLB. Yeah, I do still think the Dodgers and the Nationals and the Cubs are still better teams, and I would pick them over the Giants to get to a World Series. But they're definitely making a run for the playoffs. I don't necessarily also think they'll win the division, but you look for them to be one of those teams in the wild card. The NL has been good the last couple of years, but the Giants, they stacked and they reloaded. But so they add some good pieces. They're being smart. Unfortunately, they're being smart and adding good players, and we'll see what happens. Good for McCutchen getting out of Pittsburgh, because although that was his hometown, they're not a contending team like you just mentioned in your little talk right there about Garrett Cole. They're not contention. He needs to play for a playoff team. He's never really had a chance to be have a legitimate chance in the playoffs to win a World Series. The Giants, as we know, have that opportunity. Jared, do you care that Le'Veon Bell said he might retire if he's franchise tagged?
No, not at all. This is strictly a contract move and a way for him to get the Steelers to think that he's serious about wanting a long-term contract. Listen, the NFL is one of the only professional sports organizations, it might be the only one out of the 4 major sports, that does not give out 100% guaranteed contracts. So a lot of these athletes, obviously all these football players, they want the security of knowing that they will be set, for 3, 4, 5 years or whatever the length of the contract is in case they get a major injury. Le'Veon Bell was franchise tagged this season. He's going to make a total of $12.1 million, which is a lot of money. And he could easily retire, and if he, invests right, he could be set up for the rest of his life, right?
There you go, yeah.
But that's only on a 1-year deal. So if he were to tear his ACL tomorrow, there is no team other than maybe the Steelers that would want to re-sign him, and they would not give him the money that he actually deserves. So I completely understand where Le'Veon Bell is coming from as far as saying, listen, I want a long-term contract. I want that security. He's not saying he doesn't want that money, because if the Steelers were to franchise tag him for a second time, that $12.1 million would increase to $14.5. So that's a bunch of money that not that many people would turn down. What he is saying is, I want the security. Give me 3, 4, 5-year deals or contract, and give me $12 million a year instead of $14.5 for 1 year. So that's where he's coming from. I think the Steelers, for them it's a no-brainer. Like, he is one of the best, if not the best, arguably, running backs in the league. He's in his prime right now. This isn't a guy that you're just going to let walk away. If the Pittsburgh Steelers let Le'Veon Bell walk, they're complete idiots and they're fools. Ben Roethlisberger only has another year or 2 left in him. You have Antonio Brown, who's also in his prime, but there's no way that you're just going to let this kid walk out the door and go to another team, specifically in the AFC, and it's not like there's nothing that they can do about it. So I think this is all talk. I think in the offseason this is going to get worked out. They're going to have to come to some type of an agreement, because he's basically saying, I'm not going to play on another franchise deal. So if you're the Steelers, crunch some numbers and find a way to make this deal happen, because like I said, this isn't just like he's another guy on your roster. This is one of the best running backs in the league. You find a way to keep him on your team. Nick, last question of Do You Care? And we are sticking with the Steelers. Do you care that they have parted ways with offensive coordinator Todd Haley?
Yes, I do care about this, because this gives the chance for Todd Haley to possibly be the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, so what there have been reports of is that the Cardinals are looking at multiple head coaches. Now, Mike Munchak from the Steelers did say no to the Cardinals' second interview, so he does not want to be, at least with the Cardinals. But Todd Haley, he's been the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals, and specifically Larry Fitzgerald before in his career. So, as a Cardinals fan, I wouldn't mind him coming back. Like I said, if we could get that Alex Smith and Todd Haley tandem back here in Arizona. Well, not Alex Smith wouldn't be coming back, but you'd have the Todd Haley, Alex Smith reunion as far as offensive coordinator and quarterback in Arizona, along with Fitzgerald. I think that's a good plan. So this excites me because Todd Haley is still a very good offensive coordinator, although there's been some questionable calls he's made last couple of years, and with the Chiefs and the Steelers specifically, as far as play calling goes, he's still a great offensive coordinator, and the Cardinals are looking at that as well as a head coach. So I'm excited, and the Steelers kind of need to change. I still think that Mike Tomlin needs to be a little more on the hot seat for some of the play calls he's made in big time decisions the last couple of years. That doesn't seem to be the case. So Todd Haley naturally was the one to go. So that is the end of our Do You Care segment. We'll be right back with our final segment today. We're going to be talking all about the conference championship games in the NFL. We got Eagles and Vikings. We're going to predict that, and we're going to predict Patriots and Jags. That'll be on the other side of this quick break.
Play action. Bortles upstairs, wide open. Tommy Bohannon, touchdown Jacksonville. The 16th play of the drive, 3rd and goal. Back of the end zone, and it's caught by Hogan for the touchdown.
Ryan rolling to the right. Ryan in trouble. Ryan flips one into the end zone with a prayer, incomplete. Jalen Mills covering.
Unbelievable. Biggest play of the game. Julio Jones falls down.
Cover 2 podcast back for our final segment of the show, and we will be breaking down the NFC and AFC conference championships games. Nick, I want to start with the NFC matchup, the Vikings and the Eagles. 2 teams with 2 quarterbacks that we would not have predicted being in this game at the beginning of the year. Obviously, one team having a huge quarterback injury in the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, and another team in the Vikings who have had multiple quarterback injuries throughout the last couple of years. So we've got Case Keenum and the Vikings going into Philadelphia to face Nick Foles and that Eagles team.
Wow, if you would have predicted that in Vegas before the season, it'd be Keenum versus Foles.
Yeah.
You won a lot of money.
Right. But, Nick, I want to get your thoughts on this matchup. Break it down for me. Talk to me about who you think will win, why, and quickly, do you think the Vikings have a lot of momentum coming off of that crazy win last week?
You have to, right? You have to. Because it's almost a sense of, like, we shouldn't be here, in a way. If I was a player, obviously you're dumbfounded you won. We saw Everson Griffin's reaction. We saw Stephon Diggs' reaction. We saw Case Keenum's reaction. But you kind of are playing with house money a little bit, and you got to be like, man, if it weren't for that lucky play, we wouldn't be here right now. So we need to take advantage. Plus the incentive of having a home Super Bowl game, that's got to give them momentum for sure. Now, looking at the schematics of all of it, and looking at the fact, and we'll look at stats and all that stuff. The Vikings, in my opinion, are the better team on paper. Nick Foles is a good quarterback, but I think Case Keenum's been better this year, and I think he works in his system better than Foles does. I think the Vikings' defense is better than the Eagles, and I also think the running game is about the same, and the receiving cores are about the same. So I give the advantage as far as the team goes to the Vikings. But it's a home playoff game for the Philadelphia Eagles. That means something. Minnesota's playing outdoors. Not that they're not used to playing outdoors. They used to play in a stadium for the last couple of years that was outdoors. If you can remember, they played the Seahawks in a game where it was, I think it was a -10 wind chill or something like that. Ooh. Yeah, I could never imagine playing a game like that. But so the Vikings aren't totally forward into playing outdoor games, but Philly's a different story. As we know, Philly fans, they're crazy. They care about their team a lot. They're loud. You're going to see a lot of dog masks in the stadium as well. Lane
Very
Johnson's, yeah, that's a weird little thing. But Lane Johnson brought the dog mask out after they beat the Falcons, and apparently fans are buying them in droves and they're bringing them to that game. So my prediction for this game is I actually think the Eagles will squeak this one out and end up getting the Super Bowl. I know that pains you to hear that, but I do think there's the momentum. There's the Super Bowl. I just think the Eagles, being at home, these teams are pretty even. I'm going to give the home field advantage enough for the Eagles to win this game. Very close. I'm talking probably low-scoring game like the Falcons game as well, seeing that these offenses are not, they're not running the world here. It's not like the Golden State Warriors in basketball. This is the Memphis Grizzlies and the Brooklyn Nets playing in a game as far as offenses go. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think they'll win a close one, and I think the home field advantage will help them for sure.
The one thing that I do agree with you about is the score as far as it being low scoring. Neither of these offenses are high powered. It's about controlling the ball, playing great defense and special teams. So I agree with you on that point. The whole home field advantage, I'm not so sure about. Listen, all these like dog heads and all that stuff. To me, that's noise. That like if I was a player, that wouldn't affect me at all. There's two reasons why I'm not picking the Eagles to win. Number one, I can't stand the Eagles, and I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, so there's just no way I can ever pick the Eagles to win in any circumstance.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
I would not pick the Seahawks.
There has never ever been a team that is hosting the Super Bowl in their city to ever play in the Super Bowl. The Vikings could potentially be the first team ever to do that. The Super Bowl is being played in Minnesota in their brand new Dome Stadium, and the Vikings have a legit chance to get there and play in the Super Bowl. So I would love to see that. I think it would be fantastic. Obviously, for either the Jaguars or the Patriots, they would be at somewhat of a disadvantage because I'm sure that would definitely be more of a home game, obviously, right? A lot more Vikings fans would be there if the Vikings end up making it. So, but I think it would be a very interesting dynamic to see a home team playing in their stadium for the Super Bowl. So as far as that goes, I think those are the two reasons why I want the Vikings to win. Being very realistic and breaking down the game, I think the Vikings have a legit chance to go into Philadelphia and win. Case Keenum, I would have never ever thought, especially after last year and how he started with the Rams, that he could lead a team not only to the playoffs, but play very well in the playoffs and get his team to the conference championship. I think right now it's just the system that he's in and that how they're not asking him to do too much. He doesn't have the best receivers in the world. He has Stephon Diggs, who is a very, very good receiver. Top 15, top 20 receiver in the league. But it's not like he has like outstanding weapons with him.
Yeah.
I think they're just they're calling plays that Case Keenum is very comfortable with. They're not asking him to once again throw the ball 40 or 50 times and completely put the game on his shoulders. They're using their running game, and once again, they have a great defense. They don't need to come out and score 30 points a game because they know that their defense isn't going to give up more than 15 or 20, if that. So I think you lean on the running game, you use the clock to your advantage, run the ball, right? If you have to punt, that's okay. It's better than a turnover. And just, it's a chess game. Do not make, forced errors. Do not throw the ball into double and triple coverage. And I think as the game goes along, right, it's going to be a close game, right? I can see it being like 10-13, something like that going into the fourth quarter. And, if the Vikings are in this game, if they're within a touchdown or if they're leading in the fourth quarter, I think they're going to win. I don't know that Philadelphia and Nick Foles specifically. I guess what I'm saying is I trust Case Keenum more than I trust Nick Foles. And that's not because I'm an Eagle hater or anything like that. That's just from facts.
Oh, I agree with you
numbers.
on that, too. I agree with you.
So I would take Case Keenum as my quarterback in this game over Nick Foles.
So you're going Vikings to win the game?
Yes, I am.
How about an actual score prediction?
16-13 Vikings.
16-13. I'm gonna go 24-20 Eagles.
Okay.
I think it's going to be like I said, a lot of these playoff games have been good too. They've come down the last couple plays. Literally the Vikings' last play. And so I think it's one of those games. I think this will be a solid game. Defensive in the beginning. Like you said, low scoring. I agree with you. I completely like 13-10, maybe going into the half or into the fourth quarter. And I think the scoring will pick up, and the Eagles will grab this one 24-20. And I think that home field advantage will mean a lot. You got the Vikings, so we have a little debate here. We have two teams, two different teams possibly going to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we both got our Super Bowl teams wrong, so we have to just pick someone different. The good thing about this prediction here is that there's no bias with one of our Super Bowl teams, so it's just our opinion of who wins the game. So Jared's got Vikings, I got Eagles. Let's move on. Jaguars, Patriots. We were just saying this off break. This is the more exciting game for us. We're more excited about this one. And I think with me, at least, the one thing that excites me is I think the Jaguars might have a chance in this game.
Oh, there's no might.
Yeah. I think they and I would have never thought that, even in the beginning of the playoffs, people were saying, "Oh, there's a chance they might get the Super Bowl." Yeah, but they got Blake Bortles as his quarterback. He's gotten better though. I've been wrong. I've been proven wrong. Blake Bortles, please prove me wrong. I don't want to see the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I'll try to keep my bias out of my opinion, though, of the actual game. What does the line say? New England by 9? Hell no, that ain't happening. There's no way. I should throw a bet in Vegas right now at -9 because I think Jaguars, this is going to be a very close game. And the Jaguars' defense is the best defense in football. The Patriots' offense is not the best offense in football. That is an advantage, Jaguars. The offense for the Patriots is better than Jaguars' offense, so that there they get the win too. Obviously, the coaching goes in the Patriots' favor. It's in Gillette Stadium. That goes in the Patriots' favor, though. But I'm going to pick Jacksonville Jaguars to win this game.
Really?
I am going to say this is another one of these close games, very similar to Eagles and Vikings. I think this will be low scoring. It won't be 45-42 like the Steelers game was. But I do think the Jaguars find a way. They make a couple big defensive plays. I'm going to call this even two interceptions from Tom Brady.
Wow.
To the Jaguars defense. I think the Jaguars, if they can win the turnover battle, they have a very good chance at winning this game. I think they will. I'm going to go with the upset, though. I'm going to go Jacksonville Jaguars 27-26 in this game. They win by 1. They walk off on a field goal.
Listen, I understand a lot of people are rooting for the Patriots or think the Patriots are going to win. If the Jaguars win, to me, I don't think this is a huge upset. I'm picking the Jaguars, and I'm picking them very, very confidently.
There you go. Screw the Patriots.
No, not even that. I think the Jaguars have all the confidence in the world coming into this game. I think Blake Bortles playing well the last couple weeks, even though when they played the Bills 2 weeks ago at home, he didn't obviously have the best offensive game. Barely threw for 100 yards. But last week, going back into Pittsburgh and being able to honestly manhandle that Pittsburgh defense, I think this game is going to be similar to last week's game. I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than you think. The Patriots can score points, right?
True.
You have Tom Brady, you have Gronkowski. They get Rex Burkhead back. You still have James White and all those other running backs that can, are basically interchangeable. Going up against the Jaguars, who, listen, obviously Blake Bortles isn't the guy that you want to throw around the ball a lot, but you lean on your running game. I think this will be a game that gets into the high 20s, possibly in the 30s, but I'm picking the Jaguars to win. I think their defense is going to lead them to the Super Bowl. I think they get 1 interception on Tom Brady. I think they get a lot of hits on Tom Brady, and I think that disrupts his flow. I don't think Brady has a chance to sit back in the pocket for 3, 4, 5 seconds and dissect a defense like we know Tom Brady can do. I think the Jaguars' front 4 and front 7 specifically is so talented, and they are so good at it's not always about getting a sack. It's about making disruptions, right? Hitting Tom Brady, getting him on the ground, knocking his arm out, trying to force a wobbly football. All those things, even though they might not show up in the stat sheet, make an effect and change the outcome of the game. And I think that's what the Jaguars are so good at doing. And then when you top that off with having the best cornerback duo in the league, in my opinion, with Jalen Ramsey, AJ Abouye, Barry Church back there playing free safety and strong safety, I think this Jaguars team is built for this. They're built for this type of weather. They have already gone into Pittsburgh twice and won. They're going to go into New England with no fear, and I'm saying they're going to come out with a victory, and they're going to meet the Vikings in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I want to say 2 things about this, too. One, I heard someone say this on the NFL Network the other day. They said that, if you can remember, earlier in the season, the Jaguars and Patriots had an inter-squad scrimmage at, I believe it was the Patriots' place. Apparently, the Jaguars whooped them up and down the field. Defensively, whooped them. Offensively, whooped them. Now, the season's changed. But if that was happening in the preseason, what's going to happen with a full season under the Jaguars' helm, I think that gives an advantage. What did we see also 2 years ago when the Patriots went up against a team with a very good defense, with the best defense in the league? They lost to the Broncos. Defense wins championships. It doesn't necessarily matter who your quarterback is when your defense is that good. So, I agree with you, man. I think I'm on the Jaguars bandwagon for this game. I think the Jaguars have clearly a better chance of winning this game than the Patriots do. The only thing people could even say is the Patriots are the Patriots. They're not going to. Well, why? The defense isn't that good. The defense is not going to totally stop Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette. It's not going to happen. The offense, like you said, has never seen this type of defense before because they literally have never played this defense before. So I think the Jaguars got all the advantages in this game. You look at players, necessarily, Patriots obviously have Tom Brady and stuff like that, but I think Jaguars win. I think you'll agree with me on that. So you got Jaguars and Vikings. I got Jaguars and Eagles. So we do differ in some, but we don't differ on Jaguars. Man, how cool is it going to be if Jaguars beat the Patriots?
Jaguars,
real quick, just talking real talk. Like, how cool is it going to be if the Patriots lose to the Jaguars?
Right. To put the Jaguars and Super Bowl in the same sentence.
It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, first of all, Jaguars have never made it to the Super Bowl in their franchise history. So that's just, never. I don't believe so. I don't believe they've ever made it to the Super Bowl. So that in itself is amazing. But, for all these players, this team is so young. They have so much talent, but they're so youthful. Like, this isn't like it's the Patriots or the Steelers that have kind of a mixture of veteran quarterbacks with, young talented receivers and a running back and a, young defense. Like, this entire team is basically young. Like, the only old player, or not old, but veteran player on this team I can think of is like Paul Posluszny, who's their linebacker, right? Yeah. Everyone else on their team, like, it seems like they've only been in the league for 2 or 3 years.
Calais Campbell.
Okay, yes, he's another veteran. But it's like, Dante Fowler.
Miles
Jack, Leonard Fournette, even Blake Bortles. He's only been in the league for 3 or 4 years.
Telvin Smith hasn't been long.
Telvin Smith. They have so many young, talented guys on this team. This Jaguars team is going to be formidable for years to come. So even if they do not win on Sunday, this team isn't going anywhere. I think they're going to be right back in the playoff hunt for the next couple years at least.
No, and this is their time to win, though. We saw with the Broncos. Look what happened to the Broncos now. They had a great defense, and now they don't. And now they're not a playoff team. So if you're the Jaguars, this is your chance to get there.
This Jaguars team reminds me a little bit of the Seattle Seahawks as far as their defense, and where they're so young and they're so talented, and a lot of these guys are still on their rookie contracts. So you have to take advantage of it, like you mentioned, right now, because in 2 to 3 years, when these guys re-up and want their new contracts, and they all want $50, $80, $100 million, there's only so much money to go around, and eventually you're going to have to pick, all right, we want to keep Jalen Ramsey, we want to keep this guy, but we can't keep AJ Abouye, or we can't keep Miles Jack, right? So in 3 to 4 years, this team is going to have to split up in a sense, and they're not going to be the same. So if you want to win, the time is right now.
No, I agree with that completely. They're in a good situation. The Seahawks example is a great example as well. And those teams won Super Bowls, them and the Broncos. So defense wins championships. I forget who said that the other day. I saw it on Twitter or something, but it's true, man. It will get them there. Now, they have to win. They do have to win the Patriots. We're not predicting the Super Bowl here. We're not saying Jaguars are winning the Super Bowl. But we are saying we do believe they'll beat the Patriots, and we do believe, at least I believe the Eagles will win. Jared believes the Vikings will win. Jared, do you have a final thought on the day?
Final thought for the day is I am very much looking forward. Tonight, the Lakers are playing the Thunder.
Interesting.
Right. So we talked about earlier in our segment, we had the NBA segment with a lot of chippiness going on in the NBA. Lonzo Ball will not be playing tonight, but the Lakers will get Brandon Ingram back. Obviously, Russell Westbrook coming off his little feisty play in the last week or so. A very interesting matchup. This Lakers team, to me, throughout this whole season, and I kind of predicted this, they're very, very young and they're very talented, but I don't think they know how to close games out. Like you mentioned earlier, they basically went into overtime twice with the Golden State Warriors and had a legit chance to win both times. So that's a formidable opponent. I don't think this Lakers team is scared of anyone at all. I just think they're inexperienced.
Yeah.
So going into Oklahoma City, I think it's going to be a closer matchup than many people expect. And I would not be surprised if the Lakers win the game. I don't think they will. I think the Oklahoma City will find a way to win at the end. But I think this Lakers team is starting to gel a little bit and figure out how to play as a unit, whether it's their starters or the guys coming off the bench. I think they're starting to figure out, okay, this is what works, this is what doesn't. And towards the end of the season and going into next year, I think this team is going to climb and eventually get into that playoff spot again. Obviously, it's been a couple years since they've made it there, but this team is better than people think. I don't want to look at their record because obviously they're below 500. They've been in a lot closer matchups than people think, and this team is slowly coming along. Give them another All-Star or two next offseason, and watch out for this Lakers team.
Yeah, their record is a lot worse than it should be. Yeah. Like, when you look at their record, I was looking at it, I was like, 15-27. What? This team doesn't look like a team that's 15-27. The Orlando Magic look like a team that's 13-31. I'm thinking of another bad team. What's another bad team in the league?
Atlanta Hawks.
Atlanta Hawks look like a team, whatever their record is. That's what they look like. Okay, they look terrible. the Lakers don't look like that, though, and they look good. You're right about the future of the Lakers. They have Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball, who I think are all very good NBA players, probably all-stars later in the career. Here's another stat, and I think you probably know this. The record for the Lakers without Lonzo Ball in the lineup is 0-7. They have never won without him in the lineup.
Okay.
And this is true, too, because when you watch the games and Lonzo isn't on the court, it's noticeable. There's something wrong with the offense. Doesn't flow well. Tyler Ennis is not going to do much as the point guard. Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, and Kyle Kuzma do not know how to play point guard as well as Lonzo Ball does. The Lakers need Lonzo Ball. As much as his dad talks and all that stuff, Lonzo Ball is the key. And if, like you mentioned with free agents, if you want a free agent to come as well, like a LeBron or a Paul George or a Russell Westbrook or someone like that, you want Lonzo Ball on that team. You want that facilitator because Lonzo is the key, and they haven't won without him. So it's a little bit like Chris Paul with the Rockets as well.
Quick question for you. I was on ESPN.com earlier today.
Yes.
There was a interesting scenario that came up that said, obviously LeBron James will be a free agent after this season. There's been a lot of reports that he could potentially come to L.A. He already has a house here, blah, 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 all that stuff. This specific reporter who was speaking said he doesn't think that LeBron would come here if LeVar Ball is still associated with the Lakers, a.k.a. Lonzo Ball would have to then be traded or leave. Do you think the Lakers would give up Lonzo Ball to get LeBron?
Yes, but I don't think that'd be the best decision. I think that would be kind of falling into the media's reasoning for all of it, and I don't think that's the way you run business. The Lakers are not being hurt by LeVar Ball's comments yet, I don't think. I think you probably agree with me on that. As much as he talks, the play on the court's been the play on the court. I don't think guys are going out there, LeVar Ball said something mean about me, I'm not going to play well. No, that's not what's happened. The Lakers are 15-27 because they've lost a lot of close games, and they're young. Okay, that's what's happened. It has nothing to do with LeVar Ball. So, obviously, if LeBron came, there would be a little bit of a tension there. I think what the Lakers just need to do is get rid of LeVar Ball. You don't have to get rid of his son. Just say, hey, LeVar, you don't stop talking. You don't stop, going to the media and saying stuff. You're not going to be allowed in games. I don't care if you're this guy's dad. You're not going to be allowed in games. So I think that's what you do. I don't think you have to give up Lonzo Ball. But who's reporting this, by the way?
I forget who was actually reporting it, but it was just a very interesting scenario.
It is it's something to think about for sure. But I think you don't have to get rid of Lonzo just to get rid of his dad. Just tell his dad to get out of there. Other teams can let LeVar in the locker room if they want. It'd be maybe a way of defending against the team. Hey, LeVar, you're allowed in the Wells Fargo Center. Yeah, come here, man. You're going to talk a lot of crap. So now your son's not going to play well. LeBron's going to be mad. But I think LeBron, if he wants to play for the Lakers, he'll play for the Lakers whether Lonzo Ball's on the team or not. I think giving up Lonzo is a little too much. My final thought on the day, real quick, obviously terrible news came out of Washington, specifically Washington State last night. Tyler Helinski, their starting quarterback now since Luke Falk is going to the NFL, committed suicide last night in his apartment. And I just want to say my thoughts are with his family because his younger brother played against my brother in varsity football this year. Ryan Helinski plays for Orange Lutheran High School, very, very good quarterback over at Orange Lutheran. I believe he is going to Washington State as well. But man, that's got to be hard. Your 21-year-old brother is now dead because of something unforeseen in his mind. That was getting to him, and he had everything. He was going to be a starting quarterback at Washington State, who's a ranked team. Mike Leach, great coach, and that's a tough situation. So my thoughts are with his family. I just wanted to mention that before we ended the podcast.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So there you hear the music, and the Sandman is playing here on the Cover 2 podcast. That means the podcast is done. A good podcast here. We didn't think we'd have a lot to talk about today. We ended up getting through a full podcast, ending perfectly on time. So
that's what we do.
Exactly, that's what we do. We do it all the time. Next week we'll be talking about what happened in these conference championship games. Did the Eagles win? Did the Vikings win? And did the Jags do what we want them to do? Did they beat the New England Patriots? All of that and more. We'll be also talking a little bit about the Super Bowl as well and any other news that comes through with baseball or the NBA. For Nick Nenad,
I'm Jared Smith.
This has been the Cover